All right, thank you, ladies and gentlemen. I want to specifically thank the organizers of the FUNL 5 conference this year, Ignite Hearts and Minds. My name is Tyler Bloyer, and I am going to present my presentation on Pyrrhic progression, the illusion of freedom in modern chains. And today, we're told we are some of the most freest and advanced people in history, but look around, and what if your chains are actually digital, comfortable, and voluntary? Today, I want to talk about Pyrrhic progression, the illusion of freedom in modern chains. This is my views from the spectrum on the subject. This is really a continuation of my series that I've worked on for many years with 6 or 7 pieces that I've created in the series, The Creature of Control. And you can find more about that series on my website. Just look for The Creature of Control headers, or in the drop-down, you can find The Creature of Control and find more information on the series, or watch that series after having watched this for more context on the topic that we're talking about today in The Creature of Control. There'll be a few sections today in this presentation. I will touch on those in a moment. We're going to start with the myth of progress. And let's get right into it. So we are living in unprecedented technological acceleration. In a single lifetime, we've gone from analog systems to digital reality, from local communities to global networks, from human-scale tools to systems faster than human thought. So we'll walk through all 5 movements: the myth of progress, acceleration without conscience, technology as a moral multiplier, and then the soft change section, and then we'll move into initiation through natural law. To open us up here, we have Heidegger, who says, "The essence of technology is by no means anything technological." And we'll see in a moment here what he's getting at. And this is just a narrative here to sort of set the tone of where we're at with the myth of progress. For the first time in history, change is exponential. Our tools now outrun reflection and moral consideration. We are not just adapting to technology, we are being reshaped by it in real time. This acceleration is almost universally described as progress. Faster is assumed to be better. Newer is assumed to be superior. Advancement is assumed to be good, and simply because it is advancement. And advancement to what exactly? As you can see, what we'll be asking here today. Is it advancement towards the Borg, towards a free will-less Borg of humans that are cyborg at that point and no longer able to make free will decisions? Is that what the advancement heads towards? And that's why we're calling it a Pyrrhic progression, because, okay, we're headed towards something that may not be worth heading towards even. We're at a point now where we've gone in sort of the event horizon towards something that may become quickly out of control and out of our hands. Rarely do we stop to ask the deeper question, progress toward what exactly? So that's what we'll be asking here today. Is it, are we building the Skynet robot AI system that's going to control us all? Is it progress towards convenience and control, or towards truth and freedom? You know, it's a philosophical axiom question on progress, or what is good. Who's good and whose rationality? What is the axiom that this good is being judged upon? You know, the progress itself, is that good? Is that the good that we're all seeking? Is that what in philosophy would be considered the good? is just progress in itself, progress towards more entertainment, towards more distraction, towards more disorientation, towards the future shock. So by their ends, we will know their means. We'll see, I guess, right? Jacques Ellul has it in The Technological Society. The individual is in a dilemma. Either he decides to safeguard his freedom of choice, chooses to use traditional, personal, moral, or empirical means, thereby entering into competition with a power against which there is no efficacious defense, and before which he must suffer defeat. Or he decides to accept technical necessity, in which case he himself will be the victor, but only by submitting irreparably to technical slavery. In effect, he has no freedom of choice. So Ellul taking a slice at the Technological Society, and his words are more important today, I would say, than any other time. Someone we could anchor back to as an early critic of where we're headed towards today. And the way that you win the rat race here is by becoming the best rat, right? You win the game by becoming a slave to the game. It's a false choice being presented here. So progress that does not increase freedom and responsibility and consciousness is progress towards more slavery, to put it bluntly. Calling tech neutral is how we surrender conscience without noticing. So here we'll see Heidegger come back to, you remember we opened up with him saying that the essence of technology is by no means anything technological. So here he concludes that by saying, thus we shall never experience our relationship to the essence of technology so long as we merely conceive and push forward the technological, put up with it or evade it. Everywhere we remain unfree and chained to technology, whether we passionately affirm or deny it, but we are delivered over to it in the worst possible way when we regard it as something neutral. For this conception of it, to which today we particularly like to do homage, makes us utterly blind to the essence of technology. So Heidegger digging into the more existential situation and the way that this contributes to our way of being, and that this is a psychological manifestation, and it's not just a technological manifestation. Growth for the sake of growth is the ideology of a cancer cell, has it from Edward Abbey, The Journey Home. So progress shouldn't be measured by how fast we move, but by whether we are moving in the right direction. And cancer doesn't negotiate, neither does it unchecked tech growth. So unchecked tech growth is at the point of metastasizing, right? In this analogy. So now we'll move into the section acceleration without conscience. Systems now move faster than human reflection. Decisions are automated and scaled at machine speed before conscious can engage. The faster it gets, the less space remains for responsibility, consent, and correction. And here's really a rudimentary example and basically a low-tech example of what that is. There's still a human intervening here, apparently. There's still a human being, in the loop, where what this slide is really referring to is taking the human being out of the loop and having things accelerating at such a pace that there isn't even time for moral consideration, as there may be even in a trained soldier here that would just be pushing the buttons as if he were in a video game, taking people's lives, maybe even innocent people, a lot of the time, and him at least still be able to have a choice in that decision. And what we're talking about is even taking that away. We're moving into an era of not even having the human in the loop making these decisions, and the double-edged sword that presents. So here, John Culkin, the Society of Jesus, the Jesuit, A Schoolman's Guide to Marshall McLuhan. So he studied Marshall McLuhan, and basically this could be a quote coming from Marshall McLuhan himself. If we read it, "Life imitates art. We shape our tools, and thereafter they shape us. These extensions of our senses begin to interact with our senses. These media become the massage." And I know in McLuhan, it's the medium is the message, or the media is the message. Here, I did double check that, and it's a different take. The media is the massage, a massage. A new change in environmental, let me start that over. The new change in the environment creates a new balance among the senses. No sense operates in isolation. The full sensorium seeks fulfillment in almost every sense experience. So in other words, the digital world that we live in is shaping our experience, and we tend to seek more and more. And the tools don't just extend us, they retrain us. So the moral lag is real. The tools evolve exponentially. Character evolves slowly. When correction is removed, harm compounds. And in the meme here, or the quote from Fromm, he says, "The danger of the past was that men became slaves. The danger of the future is that men may become robots." And I would add, robotic slaves is really the danger of that. It's maybe not so much merging with technology that's the dangerous part, but where we're at in our consciousness at the point when we do that. And of course, we have Laban that we have to bring in here, who says, "In a crowd, every sentiment and act is contagious, and contagious to such a degree that an individual readily sacrifices his personal interest to the collective interest." So just, again, the marching into the future, and as everybody's got a smiley, happy face, or the happy depressives, or they're holding the signs and waving the placards into the future, but always in the crowd, not able to think as the individual. And so these things become contagions to such a degree that person will just sacrifice themselves to the collective at any cost, just to remain as a part of the crowd and not have to feel the discomfort of being the individual. So as you can see here, we're not just talking about technology itself. We're talking about the psychological state of humanity and the reflection of that it's going to have on the future. So this is not an argument against technological progress. I just want to make that clear. But against progress without moral grounding. When procedure replaces principle and legality replaces ethics, anything can be justified. Fear becomes the fuel. The old axiom, if we don't build it, they will, right? That's the continuous justification for building these weapons of mass destruction or weapons of mass control. And that it's always framed as virtue, right? So it's always framed as saving us, but really it's always just managing the herd, right? Managing the crowd. So I'm not against progress. I'm a technological enthusiast. I use technology. I make a living by working with technology and helping people secure their technology. And I'm not someone who thinks we should go back to a time before technology. Is like I was saying to Will in the interview that we did leading up to this, is that it's unfortunate that we're just not quite ready yet. It's like we're still infants in our thinking, in our consciousness, in our ability to navigate the world and to understand our reality and to understand ourselves. And here comes this accelerator catalyst, ready or not, here we go. And no one seems to be wanting to slow down or pump the brakes. And I don't even know if we could at this point. The cat's out of the bag in many different ways. And unfortunately, it's like we're just sleepwalking into the future. And I'm not trying to be a downer, and I'm not trying to be anti-technological, okay? The if we don't build it, they will is really just a coward's excuse. And many of you are building it, right? And what we're trying to do here today is get people to own that building the technological dystopian future with the technocratic dictatorship communist dystopia that's coming, which isn't like, oh, I'm such a downer because I'm focusing on that and saying it like that. It's more or less just seeing the pattern and seeing where we're headed, seeing what's happened in recent times with, what goes on the global stage and what human beings are able to adapt to and the rate that we're going. It just seems inevitable, really. So I'm not black-pilled or anti-technology. This is more just my views, again, on how things are unfolding at the current time. It doesn't make me anti-progress either. So this isn't an anti-technological, it's anti-slavery is what it is. And really trying to get people to help them to free their minds and continue to do that work, right? So it's not that I think we should put the technology back in the box. I think that we just need a better approach, and we really do need to start considering the ethics and the moral implications of our actions when we have such power as we do today with the technological powers that we're building. So again, we bring in Elul, who's a heavy hitter here in this presentation, carrying us along. And he has it, technical autonomy is apparent in respect to morality and spiritual values. Technique tolerates no judgment from without and accepts no limitation. It is by virtue of technique rather than science that the great principle has become established, chakun ches soi, or, let it to each their own kind of, right, is what that takes on. Morality judges moral problems. As far as technical problems are concerned, it has nothing to say. Only technical criteria are relevant. And I think he's not saying that this is, some kind of law. He's just observing that it seems to just go without saying. I mean, of course, right? Of course we've got to do all this. Of course we have to put it in place. Doesn't seem to be really any way to really even pin something down and question its morality at this stage. With the progressivism and this new world that we're moving into seems to be a moralless world, right? Where there is no way to apply moral concerns. I mean, it's not even discussed on the world. It's not even as part of the discussion. It's just build the empire and keep making the empire stronger, right? Progress for the sake of progress, again. The ideology of a cancer cell. There's no judging it, it just is, right? So in a society trained into weakness and voluntary servitude, a big topic of the work that I look at with the creature of control, is that our servitude is voluntary on many levels. It's already, and that's why I don't necessarily jive with the label of voluntarist. To me, it's just, it doesn't make sense. When you look at the world and the way that people are acting, it is voluntary. Unfortunately, most people choose to be voluntary slaves. And in that condition, the speed doesn't liberate, it disorients, and a disoriented population is easier to manage. Right? So now we maybe get a glimpse into what is the speed all about? Why are we headed at such a rapid pace? Could it be engineered in that way? Could it be that not only are human beings, and this slide originally said it was a little heavier and didn't say that we're trained into weakness, in a society of weak human beings who are voluntary slaves, maybe the speed that we're going at is on purpose, because of this understanding here, what we're going to talk about in the next slide with Toffler, future shock. What is that? It's the dizzying disorientation brought on by the premature arrival of the future. It may well be the most important disease of tomorrow. And look at the times that we're living in now. I mean, I think now Toffler was describing this time prophetically. We'll move into the section now, technology as a moral multiplier. So technology is not neutral. It amplifies whichever moral state already exists. When consciousness is weak, power grows faster, and that says when conscience is weak, power grows faster than responsibility. Progress without moral grounding does not remain neutral. It becomes actively destructive. So this is kind of taking a shot at the whole, every tool is neutral, and not in the concerns when it comes to the stage that we're playing on now with the way that technology is affecting people's lives. And that's why we're talking about it as a moral multiplier. So really just whatever state of mind that we're in currently, kind of like when somebody doesn't have any money and suddenly they become rich without, having put in any hard work or anything like that. It's like whatever state they're in, it tends to just amplify where they're at that point. So it's not necessarily a good thing. And that's basically the whole premise of this whole presentation is just we're being hit really quickly here with this exponential growth, which in a lot of ways I'm super excited about. And again, I don't mean to just say, oh, it's all bad, everything's horrible, go back in your cave and just let the apocalypse happen. In a lot of ways, what's happening is tremendous for humanity on many levels. I just think that unfortunately, the walking slumber that most people are in is like going to walk us right off the technological cliff, not necessarily just continually helping everyone. I think that right now we're in this sort of renaissance phase, but it's going to come with a clapdown. There's going to be a phase of freedom with these new tools, and then there's going to be the hammer, right? Then there's going to be the fist that comes down. And to think that, oh no, from here it's just flourishing is a major mistake. This is not understanding history, and it's not understanding the condition that humanity is in, morally and ethically. And what we put up there as how society should be ran, if you scale that and continue to keep scaling the way that it's gone so far, you can look at history to see how that's gone, and it hasn't gone well. Okay, so when we live in the technocratic communist dictatorship future, which is like more of a fascist state at this point, you see, tech data companies becoming as powerful as the government, like creating their own power, yes, but then becoming the government themselves, essentially offering the utility. Okay, and our government funding that at a massive level. All chips are on red. It's, again, seems like no one's really even questioning the direction that things are heading with a lot of this stuff. Technological change, says Postman, is neither additive nor subtractive. It is ecological. One significant change generates total change. Tools built for benefit are easily weaponized. Fear-driven logic justifies preemptive control. Centralized systems reward domination, not empathy. When accountability disappears, human beings are reduced to resources to be managed, optimized, or discarded. So this is the security dilemma logic, right? Preemptive domination framed as defense. Centralization of power with no moral restraint. Humans reframed as resources. Z Big has it. In the Technotronic Society, the trend seems to be towards aggregating the individual support of millions of unorganized citizens who are easily within the reach of magnetic and attractive personalities, and effectively exploiting the latest communication techniques to manipulate emotions and control reason. So this going into the cult of personality society, right? And how, the cult of personality that we follow ends up being the thing that controls our, complete worldview. And depending on how these folks are reaching out and manipulating us, it may shape a worldview that we're teetering on here today, of the doom and gloomers, which we're going to talk on in a minute. It's just the people that, everything's going to shit all the time, and of course it's the Federal Reserve and the collapse narrative, and I'm not in that category of people, because I'm doing this presentation and critiquing the direction and critiquing this technological revolution. It's a line that I'm walking and teetering on here, but it's, again, I'm an enthusiast for humanity and the human future. I think that the choices that we're presented with will be challenging, and that we'll have a lot of pain to go through still, but ultimately I think that we can pull through this, and I think it can be a technological renaissance and a human renaissance and a pro-human future. I do believe that is possible. I just don't think it's guaranteed. Hence me taking the time to, go into this information and do a presentation like this. We're trying to call out to the community of technological enthusiasts and have this message reach them that there is a way to proceed that helps empower and free humanity, instead of enslaving and making it a dark future for humanity. As technology accelerates, character lags behind. Emotional and moral development cannot keep pace with exponential tools. Psychopathy scaled through systems becomes normalized, while efficiency narratives quietly justify harm in the name of progress. So this is a big creature of control theme, but basically psychopathy plus technology equals exponential domination, right? Psychopathy as a systematic outcome, not really a rare anomaly, is what we see manifesting. Something that empowers the psychopaths, right, that we're learning more about as, we get these so-called file dumps. And I'm not saying they're a hoax. I just don't think we're seeing the whole picture with some of the more recent revelations that have come about through the government's release of the Epstein files, for example. I think we're getting a small window into what's happening, but I don't think we really quite understand the full picture of how our society is ran. I think it's just a small glimpse into that. And we really don't understand the levels of power that these psychopaths will have with the tools that are being availed now. So we need to take accountability. And if you're working on it, if you build it, you own it, right? And the questions that need to be asked are, does it increase autonomy or dependency? Which one? Does it require surveillance or consent? Does it treat humans as sovereign, free human beings or resources? Does it decentralize power or consolidate it? Would you deploy it on your own child without coercion? So if you write the code and then you wrote the ethics, and if you train the model, you trained the worldview. Technology doesn't civilize us, it reveals how uncivilized we still are. And we can see how civilized we are with the recent events with the pandemic and how human beings reacted and were treated during that time. All right, so this is the soft chains. Comfort, catastrophe, and control is actually what the section's called. So many people sense that something is wrong, yet remain passive. Doom and gloom collapse narratives become a refuge. Catastrophe replaces responsibility by focusing on external disaster. Attention is pulled away from self-examination, personal agency, and shadow work. So this is what I meant about the doom and gloom society. You know, the doom and gloom culture is actually a way of avoiding self-work and shadow work and really actually addressing the root of the problem. It just becomes another way of escapism. It just becomes another way of avoiding the psyche, of avoiding the shadow work that needs to be done. Really, to address the root of our problem, this is where the work lies. But even getting caught up in the work that we've touched on in my Falling into the Movement Traps series, right? Fire in the Minds of Men. Is this really addressing the problems out there in the world, or is it just another way of escapism? And Reich has it, until the character armor has been broken down, the patient can neither associate freely nor have a vital feeling about himself. He expects the analyst in some magical way to do everything for him. And without really knowing it, he assumes a passive attitude whose substance is anything but passive. So, the ignorance is bliss conundrum and the damage that ends up really doing to the self and to the world. Right? It's not exactly a passive attitude when your ignorance is harming other people through your behaviors, when you could know better. The self-destructive human nature that Reich is touching on here in character analysis. Of course, Jung has it another way, which we've heard all over the place. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. Much simpler way to say the same thing. So the crowd becomes a substitution for conscience. Identity is found in movements rather than in character. Responsibility dissolves into collective emotion. When accountability is shared by everyone, it is carried by no one, and compliance feels justified even when actions conflict with inner truth. Inner truth? What? These people have no idea about any sort of inner truth, right? It's a slap in the face to the truth. The crowd. The crowd is always intellectually inferior to the isolated individual. Coming back from Laban. Comfort completes the chain. Pleasure replaces meaning. Convenience is traded for freedom. Discomfort is avoided. And with it, growth. A culture organized around ease produces dependent adults, stalled development, and people who mistake comfort for safety and control for care. The old war is peace, freedom is slavery, ignorance is truth. Frankl comes in. What man needs is not a tensionless state, but rather striving and struggling for a worthwhile goal, a freely chosen task. What he needs is not the discharge of tension at any cost, but the call of potential meaning waiting to be fulfilled by him. In his man's search for meaning. The most effective prison is the one that the inmates beg to stay in, though. we hand over the keys daily via apps, notification, dopamine chasing and hits. And these voluntary chains feel like freedom. Of course, Huxley analyzing the situation. Most men and women will grow up to love their servitude and will never dream of revolution. There seems to be no good reason why a thoroughly scientific dictatorship should ever be overthrown. So Huxley recognizing the future for what it is. Maybe he didn't necessarily love the idea, just throwing out that this is exactly what would occur. Much more likely scenario than the George Orwell boots to the head. It's the compliant citizen that happily goes along with his chains and servitude as long as he gets his peanuts. So for the final section, initiation or enslavement. Initiation has quietly disappeared from modern life. Rites of passage that once forged responsibility and sovereignty are gone. In their places is dependency, prolonged adolescence, and adults unprepared to govern themselves or their own power. So we've lost something along the way. We become a society of foolish people who, in an adolescent state, all the way throughout into their late adulthood, if not forever. We've lost these stages of massive change and growth brought on by what should be a normal cadence for a person to graduate into becoming a real responsible adult. And now it's just Big Brother all the way through, and no responsibility ever really taken by the individual. People in complete ignorance of themselves and of the power that we're building. And so reshaping that and coming back into harmony with this process. Of course, someone who experienced the real effects of physical slavery in a very real way has it here. To make a contented slave, it is necessary to make a thoughtless one. It is necessary to darken the moral and mental vision and, as far as possible, to annihilate the power of reason. He must be able to detect no inconsistencies in slavery. He must be made to feel that slavery is right, and he can be brought to that only when he ceases to be a man. From Frederick Douglass, Narratives of the Life of Frederick Douglass, an American Slave. When initiation is absent, external authority replaces internal conscience. Technocratic systems thrive on uninitiated people who seek permission, guidance, and protection. Without self-mastery, individuals look outward for control rather than inward for responsibility. Men without initiation seek authority figures or systems, not freedom. Freedom is not a political status, it is a way of being that arises through alignment with natural law. How we use tools, what we believe, and how we act determines whether progress serves sovereignty or enslavement. So it's a matter of consciousness, and it continues to be a choice, alignment with natural law. How we use and implement the tools and what moral philosophy we live by. That's why I say freedom is a way of being. And we'll talk about that here more as we progress, but it's not a political status. It's not a party. It's not something that we accomplish by voting the right people into office, right? It's an attitudinal thing even. more so than just a way of being. At any given moment, someone can have the attitude of freedom and be a free person, even if they're fully enslaved. Obedience to nature and its law. Natural law, the immutable laws that govern human behavior, meaning our actions have consequences and harm, coercion, and deception always generate disorder, no matter how legal, quote unquote, they are. So just a quick level set and definition of natural law, as this is the Freedom Under Natural Law Conference, then a lot of the people here will understand natural law. And this presentation here today I have isn't necessarily a critique of the natural law community, in so much as it's really a critique of the technology community and people that are building the technology that is going to be affecting all of our lives. A society that skips initiation manufactures slaves who love their cages. It's just the outcome that we're building. And the hard truth about that is that most of today's control is voluntary. It's already voluntary. People are already acting of their own free will. They're not just complete mind-controlled robots with no free will. They're voluntary slaves. And we trade our freedom for convenience and call it progress. The other hard truth. And finally, our technological progress is building a high-tech prison. And we see the prisoner here with the ridiculousness of modern technology symbolized in the ironic symbol of progress by that ridiculous bicycle. That's a symbol of the Prisoner series because it's calling out that, the ridiculousness of the contraption that we're building. And funny enough, it is an AI supercomputer who is in control at the end of the series. Sorry to give it away. Spoiler alert, but ultimately, number one is you, though. You're the one who gets to make the choice. The question in the series, who is number one, is really pointing the finger back at the person and asking the question. You are, they say in response to the question. You are number 6. So they're answering that ultimately it's you in charge and in control of the outcome. So if we do nothing, if we take no action, if we just allow the future to come at us in the way that it's developing now, we'll have exponential tech unaligned with morality, which equals digital feudalism. AI enforcing compliance, algorithms, shaping souls, and surveillance as default. The future isn't a far-off dystopian sci-fi, it's now, unless we pivot. Humanity's spirit will be crushed under progress, quote unquote. So people that refuse initiation will beg for management, right? And the digital feudalism here, everybody talks about AI alignment. Alignment with what exactly? With being woke and not, giving the right answer because it may offend somebody or it needs to be shaped in this certain way. Who's driving the models? Who's really training them, in certain ways? Right now, it's a little bit of the wild, wild west. You have a lot of different things happening. But ultimately, if we just sit back and let it go the way that it's going to go, this is what you'll end up having. An outcome of a soulless humanity just being rolled in a sci-fi dystopian future, right? That's not far off at all. This is happening now. This is happening as we speak. These systems are being built and things are moving at such a rate that it is dire. It is a situation that we need to respond to. We need to be here now to make the decision and help people because we still have a choice, because it is still a question mark on the keyboard, because we still have the ability to question the direction of things and the way things are going. So it makes now basically the most important time there is. So it's the choice point. And if every tool asks a question, it will ask, will you use me to free people or to manage them? There is no neutral use in a moral universe governed by natural law. So the question isn't whether technology will advance, it's whether we will. Alignment with natural law. The Renaissance awaits. Freedom is a way of being. Imagine 2030, not dystopia, but a renaissance. Decentralized tools amplifying free humans, and truth-seeking AI serving curiosity, not control. Networks run on consent over surveillance. As initiation returns and we master acceleration for good by choosing alignment now. So again, I am optimistic about the future, but I do feel like it's still a choice. I do feel like it isn't guaranteed to be AI, truth-seeking AI, that's helping us out in every way. It could be just a massive panopticon, surveillance system, and humans really sort of submitting to those tools because they're in such a state as they don't really want to be free. Another premise of the Creature of Control series is that it's not that we just give people the facts and here we go and they're going to see a presentation and now everything's solved. The problem is that there's a much bigger problem to be dealt with that people are running 1,000 miles an hour away from in the opposite direction to not want to deal with. So here, you can feel free to say these along with me. I know it's a virtual live audience. But the natural law commitment that I'm asking people who build technology today to take is, I will not outsource my conscience. I will not build systems that require coercion or violate natural law. And my actions are aligned with truth, freedom, prosperity, and love. And that's how we really end slavery. So that's the commitment that I'm asking the builders out there to take today, and really anyone out there listening. Free your mind and the rest will follow. Premise of the work that I do over at tylerbloyer.com. It all does start in the mind, and that is what we're here to do, is to end slavery one mind at a time. And may we become the kind of people who deserve the power we are building. Again, I'd like to thank the presenters and organizers of the FUNL 5 event, as well as the audience for participating, and appreciate everyone's time and attention. And I really am someone who's excited about the future that we're heading into. I'm excited to be here with all of you at this online event, and I appreciate the presenters and organizers for having me on. Again, thank you.